Hello, Meoni here, and today I wanted to go through the patch 4.1 official trailer and note out a few parts, breaking it down, if you will, into explanations of certain standout sections of this trailer. For this reason, this video is spoiler filled and you should only continue to watch this if you intend to listen to me talk about 4.1 and all of the storylines associated with it. Now that's out the way, let's look at this slideshow I've quickly put together from footage from the trailer. Obviously you can go watch the full trailer live, link is in the description below as usual. The first scene in the trailer then. A new English voice actor for Lolorito, much less sinister than the Japanese counterpart for sure. I'm not really sure why they keep changing voice actors patch by patch. Obviously money has something to do with it, I realise, but it can really stump you if you watch all of the cutscenes in order as a kind of movie or as a new player going through them block by block. Either way, Lolorito is here mentioning how he has apparently been summoned by the Scions, mentioning that if it's anything concerning assassination, then I fear I can be of little help, to which the camera pans to what appears to be the Sultana in her usual commoner disguise, where she smiles, and then it sounds as though she is about to take off her disguise as it fades to black. As to what she would be doing with Lolorito, and what exactly the Sultana appears to be meeting with him to discuss, is anyone's guess. We could imagine that Lolorito in this scene knows who it is and sees through the disguise, and so mentions this as a reference to what he did in the fake poisoning of the Sultana in a previous patch in Heavensward. The Stormblood logo pops up next, and then we get a fade to Lys in Alamigo, with a bunch of Resistance members here in the throne room. The narration by Lys explains the people have had enough of authority, and it appears in the next scene that there is a certain amount of disagreement with how Alamigo will work as a new nation free from the Empire. Ralban seems to step in amongst a dispute with the people and mentions how they have to band together and decide what nation Alamigo is going to become. This patch is obviously going to be story focused around the rebuilding of the nation and probably attempt to tie loose ends up similarly to the Dragonsong War in Heavensward. The next scenes show the new dungeon. This is the drowned city of Scala. This is a new dungeon to be located within the lock zone under Loch Seld. They show here a party venturing into the dungeon and fighting rock golems. And then this scene of what appears to be a boss of the instance. This is a horse which we saw in a previous video we did about the dungeon from the official 4.1 promotion website where they showed images of this horse. The horse uses water effect and blurs the screen here with a tidal wave ability that looks rather devastating. The dungeon includes all manner of undead beasts, including these wraith-like things that you can find in the caverns of the lock zone to the north outside of the dungeon. Another boss here is this chimera-like lion creature with wings that glow red. It looks pretty cool and some of his abilities look very flashy. Next up, the trailer switches to a dungeon where Fordola is being kept in the main scenario. Fordola says that it's pointless and that there's no point in keeping her alive, and that you know it, whilst Lys walks into her cell. The trailer here shows flashbacks of Fordola's past, being shielded here by a man as she is being thrown stones at by other Alamegans. Expected then is more loose end tying up, and honestly Fordola is one of the only few plot points they can work off of from the ending of Stormblood's ending, other than a certain scene with the Emperor we won't look out for a good few patches from now. It will be interesting to see what direction they take her, and whether she is as deadly as I'm guessing she is post-experiments. Next up we see yet another flashback scene. This however is of Ralban. How do I know this is a flashback? Well, he has two arms. This to me looks like the fighting pits that Ralban fought in to free Pippin from a life of slavery in a gladiatorial arena in Uldar, which is how Pippin became his adopted son in the first place. Perhaps this is to add depth to their relationship, which until the recent Tales from the Storm article on the Lodestone remained mostly unmentioned in-game. It would be nice to see some of this in-game in cutscenes, and I think that's what we're getting as opposed to just having to read blog entries. Lys is back up again in a scene this time taking place in the throne room of Alamigo, mentioning she is Lys Hexed and that she speaks for the Resistance. This is a small section and probably is included to bolster the idea of trying to take control of a chaotic nation without any kind of official leader after the liberation from the Gallian Empire. Then, straight away the trailer focuses instead on Shinryu, this time showcasing the Extreme mode from the new Minstrel's Ballad Extreme Trial. It shows players in the trial hanging to the side of Shinryu as it does an attack, some of a fight here on the platform, and then this very interesting scene showing perhaps a new phase of the fight where players are running down the spine of a dragon, avoiding what appears to be laser beams. It then switches back to Lys in the throne room again. This time the camera is further zoomed out and we can see members of multiple races and tribes have come together to decide the future of Ala Mhigo. There appears to be a third creature I cannot place on the left there, and a member of the Ananta snake people on the right, along with some refugees or leaders of various Girabanian clans in the middle. Next up is a great elegant tower fizzing with electricity, which then pans to various boss battles or phases of the new Ultimate Coil of Bahamut raid. You can clearly see previous bosses from the coil, including Twintania here. Bahamut and a coil of chains seem to be around what appears to be dragonkin type people. I'm not really sure what's happening here, but it's very flashy and quite awesome looking. Next up we have Fordola in prison again, this time apparently going insane as she clutches her face. You can hear a faint heartbeat on the audio track of the trailer. She is clearly turning into whatever weapon Aulus created when he experimented on her earlier in the storyline. The font of water inside the palace seems to emit some kind of light that's drawn upwards, and then we see the heroes we know face off against an unknown enemy that's off screen, with a shield being projected to deflect some kind of magic attack. Alpha now getting serious with his book out, Rauban then cuts some guy down and then threatens this unseen enemy off screen. Come then, who will be next to die on my steel? The key point to mention here is that the scene before with all the people around Lys as she addressed those who came to help restore Ala Mhigo, the one race that seems to be missing from this lineup next to Rauban is the Ananta. That could be for many reasons. Perhaps they were killed, including the possibility of an Ananta tribe becoming treacherous for some reason, or could be something completely different. We're speculating at this point. Next up is a small amount of footage of the new PvP mode. This is Rival Wings. This pits two massive teams against each other, red versus blue style. The aim is to destroy the opponent's core, like this one on screen here, by using various Machina robots, which you can gain much like a MOBA through the destroying of enemies' Machina, and Mammoth NPC creeps to gain the resources to get more robots, eventually destroying towers and the core and winning the match. There's some really cool arrangements of boss models you may realise are from the Alexander raid in Heavensward here, and it looks like you get to ride atop them whilst they do their damage, which is pretty cool. Next up we have a part of the trailer that shows parts of the new Hildebrand storyline. Supposedly this is very short and is to act as an introduction to the new Hildebrand adventures coming in the next few patches for Stormblood. This shows Nashu, Hildy's faithful companion, seemingly getting caught up in a Far Eastern adventure whilst trying to seek out her mentor. In between this, footage of the new housing area in Shirogane is mixed in, and it looks absolutely beautiful. Beachside adventures galore, and even some footage of inside one of these eastern houses, full of course of bards playing their new perform skill, which sadly won't be in the game until patch 4.15 due to lag issues. Lots of unique eastern housing items are being teased and added to the game as they mentioned in the live letter, so it's great to see a teaser of some of that here. Then we pan back to Nashu writing something down and more Hildebrand storyline. A pretty hilarious part here with a Namazu that blows himself up next to a waterfall with Makote washing themselves with this what appears to be a bomb kebab. Not sure what they'll be getting up to here, but it's sure to put a smile on my face for certain if it doesn't other people's. I find it hilarious. Finally, we see the return to Ivalice raid. This first shot here is what appears to be a character perhaps holding Nephesite. I could be wrong with this, but it's a big plot point nevertheless. The next scene shows a damaged Rabanasta, the great city itself from Final Fantasy XII. We've seen this image on the 4.1 page already, but now we get to see some bosses in the actual city. These are certainly bosses from Final Fantasy XII, the first one here being absolutely 100% Hashmal. This is the Summon Esper from Final Fantasy XII. This guy is an Earth Esper and seems to be just one of the new epic bosses that we'll get to face in the Return to Ivalice raid. When I saw this, my eyes leapt out of their sockets, to be honest, especially when I realised who it was. And just when you thought this couldn't get any better, they show off the next boss, Mateus. This is another Esper, this time the Esper of Ice in Final Fantasy XII. This looks again to be an incredible Alliance raid, especially considering we'll be facing such epic bosses as these. I wonder honestly how they're going to tie in the existence of these Espers after so long, and with a storyline so convoluted. It's going to be a really special story for sure to read, and I'm really looking forward to it. Next up, an underwater scene shows people rising to the surface from what appears to be submerged parts of the Garum Waterway, and sure enough the next scene actually shows the Garum Waterway in all of its glory. If you look carefully at the end of the bridge here on this picture, you can even see one of the old save crystals from Final Fantasy XII, which is a really nice touch, and I wonder what interaction that's going to have with the actual raid, if at all anything. This next image blew up the Final Fantasy XIV Reddit. The Bhangarh Race are included in this story, and it almost appears like this is the one and only Bagamnon. If you remember this guy from Final Fantasy XII, then you'll know all about him. It's really exciting to see this race in, and a lot of people have been asking to play as this race, which, you know, will probably never happen, but it's pretty damn cool to think about. He shoots off a few rounds from his firearm before the scene finally fades away. There's only literally a few milliseconds of this footage. And then it fades to an unusual character sat on a sofa, surrounded by the Warrior of Light, Cid, and 3 others that we can't identify yet that are probably key to the Return to Ivalice raid storyline. Back into the raid now, and we get to see the chariot type monster we saw in an early art form in concept art on another of the live letter broadcast earlier this year. It looks incredible in game as an actual model, and appears to be part horse, chariot, serpent, and a monster riding atop it. And then the next scene we get Hashmal using a powerful and very bright glowy ability, and then a nice open shot of Mateus again mid-fight using one of her ice abilities. Back to the chariot boss we go again, and we don't know much about this boss, but this time he seems to be doing an ultimate ability. He seems to charge the screen shortly after this silhouette ability ends in the centre here. And finally we get this lovely image of the Prima Vista Theatre airship floating near the outskirts of Rabanastre. And eventually it fades to the new Legend Returns patch 4.1 logo. Personally, I love this trailer. It was unusual comparatively to their usual trailer setup, but showed much more than I expected of parts I wanted to know more about, specifically the Return to Ivalice raid. Knowing the patch is full of story and compelling content for all types of players, no matter what you're into, is fulfilling, and I just can't wait until October 10th to get stuck in, to be honest. Thanks for watching this trailer breakdown. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Engage in some discussion below, and I'll see you next time.